Virgin whispered. "I've never been touched by any man." The arrogant millionaire overheard and said, "I will be her first." Part 2. Thursday morning came too quickly. Annabelle had barely slept, tossing and turning while her mind replayed every moment with Jabari, the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious, the impossible promise hanging between them. By the time she dragged herself out of bed at 7, she'd made exactly 0 decisions about what to say to him. She found Jabari already in the kitchen, impeccably dressed, despite the early hour, staring at his laptop with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" He looked up, and the professional mask was firmly back in place. "We have a problem. Senator Harrison just called. He's withdrawing his attendance from the gala." "What? Why?" "Apparently, someone leaked information about the venue change to a blogger who's been criticizing my business practices. They're spinning it as incompetence, that I can't even successfully plan a charity event, so how can I be trusted with government contracts or public partnerships?" Annabelle moved closer, reading the blog post over his shoulder. It was vicious, twisting the venue flood into evidence of poor planning and suggesting that Jabari's entire operation was built on smoke and mirrors. Worse, it included quotes from an anonymous source close to the event, claiming the charity was more about his ego than actually helping families. "This is Simone," Annabelle said immediately. "You don't know that. Who else has access to information about the venue change? Who else would benefit from sabotaging your event?" Annabelle pulled out her phone. "I'm calling her." "Don't." Jabari's voice was sharp. "It won't help. She'll deny everything, and we'll have no proof. So we just let her destroy your reputation? We focus on damage control. I've already reached out to several media contacts for counterstatements. My PR team is drafting responses. We'll handle this professionally." There it was, the wall slamming back into place. All the vulnerability from yesterday vanished, replaced by the controlled businessman who treated everything like a chess game. "Jabari, I don't have time for this discussion, Annabelle. The gala is in 2 days. I need to salvage what's left of this event's credibility." His dismissive tone ignited something in her chest. "Right, because God forbid you actually acknowledge that someone hurt you. Better to just lock it down and power through, right? This isn't personal, it's business. Everything is personal. Your father started this charity because he personally cared about families losing their homes. You're running it because you personally want to honor his memory. And Simone is personally trying to destroy it because you had the audacity to have boundaries. What do you want me to do?" Jabari stood, frustration cracking through his composure. "Break down? Have a public meltdown? That's not who I am. No. Who you are is someone so afraid of appearing vulnerable that you'd rather pretend you don't have feelings at all. That's not fair, isn't it? Last night you told me being around me makes you feel real again. But the second there's actual conflict, you retreat behind your professional persona like it's body armor." Jabari's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what it's like to have every aspect of your life scrutinized, criticized, weaponized. I learned early that showing weakness means giving people ammunition. So yes, I control what I can control. I'm sorry if that's not emotionally authentic enough for you." The words stung, probably because they held truth. Annabelle came from a different world, one where messiness was acceptable, where you could make mistakes without blog posts dissecting your character, where vulnerability was strength rather than liability. "I'm not asking you to be someone else," Annabelle said quietly. "I'm asking you to let someone in, to trust that you don't have to handle everything alone. I've tried that. It doesn't work. With Simone, she wasn't trying to know you, she was trying to use you. That's different, is it? Because from where I'm standing, everyone wants something. Simone wanted status. My business partners want connections. Even the people at this gala, they're not coming because they care about the charity. They're coming for networking opportunities and social currency. That's not true, isn't it? Be honest, Annabelle. If Keisha hadn't asked you to help, would you be here? Would you have given me a second thought after that wedding?" The question hit like a slap. Because he was right, she wouldn't have. She'd written him off as another arrogant businessman, never bothering to look deeper. "That's not fair either," she said, "but it's honest. You want me to be vulnerable? Fine. Here's vulnerable. I don't trust that this is real. Any of it. Because in my experience, people leave. They die or they move on or they realize I'm too much work for too little emotional return. So I've learned not to need anyone. It's safer. It's lonely. Maybe. But at least I won't be disappointed." The words hung in the air between them, painful and raw, and so deeply sad that Annabelle wanted to cry. Before she could respond, Keisha appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, holding her phone with a grim expression. "We have another problem," she said. "Of course we do," Jabari muttered. Keisha held out her phone, showing a social media post from one of the gala's major sponsors. Hartman Industries just announced they're pulling their sponsorship, effective immediately. Jabari grabbed the phone, scanning the post. His expression went carefully blank, the look of someone absorbing another blow while refusing to show the impact. "That's 30% of our funding," he said flatly. "Can we replace it?" Annabelle asked. "In 24 hours? Unlikely." He handed the phone back to Keisha. "I need to make some calls. See if we can restructure the budget, maybe consolidate some expenses." He walked toward his office without another word, leaving Annabelle and Keisha staring after him. "That bad?" Keisha asked quietly. "Worse. We had a fight right before you came in." "About?" "About everything. Trust, vulnerability, whether any of this is even real." Annabelle sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "He thinks I'm only here because you asked. That I wouldn't have given him a chance otherwise." "Would you have?" "I don't know. Probably not. But that doesn't mean what's happening now isn't real." Keisha sat across from her, expression serious. "Belle, I love you. You're my best friend, and I'd trust you with my life. But I need you to be really honest with me right now. What are you doing with my brother?" "I don't know." "That's not good enough. Because Jabari doesn't do casual. He doesn't let people in easily, and when he does, it matters. So if you're not sure about this, you need to walk away now, before it gets worse." "What if I am sure? What if I think this could be something real, but I have no idea how to make it work when I live in another state and we've known each other for less than a week?" "Then you figure it out. Together." "But Jabari's been burned before, Belle. By our dad dying, by Simone's betrayal, by every person who ever saw him as a means to an end. He doesn't have the emotional bandwidth for another person who's going to leave." The words settled over Annabelle like a weight. Because Keisha was right, she would be leaving. In 2 days, she'd go back to her apartment, her job, her regular life. And Jabari would stay here, dealing with his charity and his business and all the people trying to tear him down, unless she chose differently. The thought terrified her. Her phone buzzed a text from her boss. "Hope the family emergency is resolving. Need you back by Monday for the Henderson wedding. Can't postpone again." Right. Her real life. The job she'd left abruptly, the commitments she'd abandoned, the career she'd built over years of hard work. She couldn't just throw that away for a man she barely knew. Could she? "I need to think," Annabelle said, standing. "Don't think too long. My brother's falling apart, even if he won't admit it. And the gala is tomorrow night. Whatever you decide, he deserves to know." Annabelle nodded and retreated to her room, closing the door and leaning against it. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from her boss, 2 from her mother asking when she'd be home, and 1 from the wedding venue she was supposed to be coordinating next week. Reality, calling her back. She looked around the guest room that had become oddly familiar over the past few days. Thought about Jabari in his office, alone with his crisis and his carefully controlled pain. Thought about walking away and never knowing what they could have been. The choice should have been simple. Safe, practical, logical, go home, save her career, remember this as a brief, intense interlude that meant nothing in the long run. But nothing about Jabari Wilson had been simple since the moment she'd met him. A knock on her door interrupted her spiral. "Come in." Jabari stood in the doorway, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "I'm sorry," he said without preamble. What I said earlier about you only being here because Keisha asked, that wasn't fair. It was honest though. Honest and fair aren't always the same thing. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I was lashing out because I'm scared of this event failing, of disappointing people, of what I'm feeling for you. Annabelle's heart stuttered. What are you feeling for me? Something I promised myself I wouldn't feel. Something that makes every logical reason to keep my distance seem completely irrelevant. He moved closer, his eyes searching hers. I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. I know you have a life to get back to and I have a disaster to clean up. But I also know that I haven't felt this alive, this present, this hopeful in 4 years. And that's because of you, Jabari. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that whatever happens, whether you stay or go, whether this gala succeeds or fails spectacularly, these few days with you have mattered. You've mattered. He turned to leave, and Annabelle made a choice. Wait, he stopped. I'm scared too, she admitted. I'm terrified that I'm making the same mistake I always make, jumping into something intense without thinking it through, letting my heart override my common sense. I'm scared that in 2 months, we'll realize this was just proximity and crisis bonding, and we'll have ruined my friendship with Keisha for nothing. But I'm also scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. What if this was real? What if we could have made it work? What if I let fear make me miss something extraordinary? Jabari crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones, and the gentleness of the gesture made her breath catch. I can't promise this will work, he said softly. I can't promise I won't mess it up, or that my life won't get in the way, or that the logistics won't tear us apart. But I can promise that if you're willing to try, I'll show up. Fully. Honestly. No more walls. That's a big promise from someone who's built an entire fortress. You're worth demolishing fortresses for. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and honest and full of all the things they'd been dancing around for days. Annabelle's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Jabari's arms wrapped around her waist like he was afraid she might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Annabelle rested her forehead against his. We're definitely going to screw this up, she whispered. Probably. My boss is going to kill me. I'll protect you. You can't even protect your own gala from sabotage. I'm working on it. She laughed, and the sound felt like hope, like possibility, like maybe, just maybe, this insane risk might be worth taking. Then her phone rang her boss again, probably firing her this time, and Jabari's phone buzzed with what was likely another crisis. And reality came crashing back with perfect, terrible timing. We should, Annabelle started. Deal with our respective disasters, Jabari finished. I know, but neither of them moved, still holding each other like letting go would break whatever fragile thing they'd just built. After the gala, Jabari said, after everything settles, can we talk about this? Really talk, about what happens next. Yeah. After the gala, he kissed her forehead and left, and Annabelle stood alone in her room, phone still ringing, heart still racing, absolutely no idea how she was going to make any of this work. But for the first time in years, she wanted to try. Before we continue, if you enjoy our story, please do well to like and subscribe. It means a lot to our channel's growth. Now you've done that, let's dive back in. Friday arrived like a storm breaking. The day of the gala. The day everything either came together or fell spectacularly apart. Annabelle woke at 5 a.m. to her phone exploding with messages. Half were from vendors confirming final details, the other half were increasingly frantic emails from her actual boss, demanding she return immediately or consider herself unemployed. She stared at the termination warning in her inbox, thumb hovering over the reply button, trying to find words that would salvage her career without abandoning what she'd started here. Nothing came. A soft knock interrupted her paralysis. Annabelle? You awake? Keisha's voice. Uncertain. Yeah, come in. Keisha entered holding 2 coffee mugs, her expression troubled. We need to talk before things get crazy today. That sounds ominous. It's about Jabari. Keisha sat on the edge of the bed, handing over one mug. He didn't sleep last night. I heard him in his office until 3 a.m., making calls, reworking budgets. He's running on fumes and stubborn pride. He won't accept help. He never does. But Belle, I'm worried. This gala means everything to him. It's his last connection to our dad, his way of proving he's more than just a corporate machine. If it fails, it won't fail. But what if it does? What if Simone's sabotage works and the sponsors stay away and the whole thing becomes a public embarrassment? Jabari won't recover from that. Not really. Annabelle set down her coffee, meeting Keisha's eyes. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you're prepared for what happens if this all goes wrong. Because my brother is falling for you hard, fast, terrifyingly hard. And if tonight crashes and burns and you walk away afterward, I don't know if he'll come back from that either. The weight of responsibility settled over Annabelle like a physical thing. I'm not going to walk away. You say that now, but your boss is blowing up your phone. Your life is in another state. And Jabari comes with complications, public scrutiny, trust issues, a whole world of pressure you're not used to. Are you really ready for that? I don't know, Annabelle admitted. But I know I can't walk away without trying. That has to count for something. Keisha studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, then let's make sure tonight doesn't fail. What do we need? A miracle. And probably more coffee. By 8 a.m., they'd assembled an emergency war room in Jabari's dining room. Annabelle had her laptop open with vendor schedules, Keisha was coordinating with the museum staff, and Jabari stood at the head of the table looking like a general preparing for battle. Final headcount is 212, he reported, voice steady despite the exhaustion in his eyes, down from 300, but still respectable given the circumstances. Media coverage? Annabelle asked. Local news is confirmed. Business Journal is sending a reporter, and I managed to get a lifestyle blogger who's actually sympathetic to the cause. What about the senator? Jabari's expression tightened, still withdrawn. His office cited scheduling conflicts, but we all know what it really is. Optics, Keisha said bitterly, can't be associated with potential failure, so we make sure it's not a failure. Annabelle pulled up her notes. We've got everything we need for a successful event. The venue is stunning, the catering is confirmed, the art integration gives us a unique angle. We just need to control the narrative. How? Jabari asked. By being honest. By making this about what it actually is, a son honoring his father's legacy, a community coming together to help families in crisis. We stop trying to compete with whatever lies Simone is spreading, and we tell our truth louder. Jabari looked at her like she'd suggested they perform magic tricks. You want me to get personal? In public? I want you to remind people why this matters. Give them something real to connect to instead of corporate PR speak. I don't do speeches about my feelings. Then maybe it's time to start. The tension crackled between them. Keisha cleared her throat, tactfully checking her phone. I should go coordinate with the caterers. You two work out the speech thing. She fled, leaving them alone. Jabari sank into a chair, rubbing his face with both hands. I can't do this. Yes, you can. You don't understand. Standing up there, talking about my father, about loss and grief and why this charity matters, it's like ripping open wounds I've spent 4 years trying to heal. It's vulnerability on a stage with 200 people watching, waiting to see if I'll crack. Annabelle moved to crouch beside his chair, taking his hands in hers. You won't crack. You're stronger than you think. Or I'll break completely and prove Simone right that I'm all control and no substance. That everything I've built is just a facade. Listen to me. Annabelle squeezed his hands. Simone is wrong. About you, about this charity, about everything. And the only way to prove that is to show people who you really are. Not the polished businessman or the controlled executive, but the man who misses his father. The man who wants to help people because he remembers what it felt like to almost lose everything. What if they don't care? What if I pour my heart out and it changes nothing? Then at least you'll know you tried, that you didn't let fear keep you from being honest." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Your father wouldn't have wanted you to hide. He started this charity by being open about his own struggles, by letting people see his vulnerability. Maybe it's time to follow his example." Jabari's eyes were suspiciously bright. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Say exactly what I need to hear, even when it terrifies me. It's a gift. Also, I care about you, which helps with the mind reading." He pulled her up and into his lap, arms wrapping around her waist. "I'm going to mess this up. The speech, us, probably everything. Probably. But I'll be there when you do. Promise. Promise." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of gratitude. When they broke apart, some of the fear had left his eyes, replaced by determination. "Okay," he said, "I'll write a speech, a real one. But you have to help me." "Deal." They spent the next 3 hours crafting words that actually mattered. Jabari talked about his father, the man who'd worked 3 jobs to keep their house, who'd started the charity in their living room with nothing but hope and determination. He talked about watching families lose their homes during the recession, about the helplessness he'd felt as a teenager, about the promise he'd made at his father's funeral. Annabelle listened and shaped and pushed him to go deeper, to trust that honesty would resonate more than perfection. By noon, they had a speech that made her cry. "That's good, right?" Jabari asked anxiously. "Crying means good? Crying means it's real. And real is what we need." The afternoon became a blur of final preparations. The museum transformed into something magical, soft lighting, highlighting the artwork, tables arranged to encourage conversation, everything elegant without being ostentatious. Exactly the kind of event that honored both the charity's mission and the artistic venue. At 4 p.m., Annabelle retreated to get ready, her hands shaking as she zipped herself into the emerald dress she'd brought. Her phone buzzed with another message from her boss. "Final warning. Return by Monday or you're done." She silenced it, unwilling to make that decision until after tonight. A knock on her door revealed Keisha, stunning in royal blue, carrying a small box. "From Jabari," she said, handing it over. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny house. The note read, "Thank you for helping me remember what home means. J." Annabelle's vision blurred with tears. She couldn't afford to cry before the gala. "He really loves you, you know," Keisha said softly. "He hasn't said it yet because he's terrified, but it's there, in everything he does." "I know. Do you love him back?" The question hung in the air, demanding honesty. Annabelle thought about the past 5 days, the frustration and laughter, the vulnerability and growth, the way Jabari looked at her like she was something precious. "Yeah," she whispered, "I really do." "Then whatever happens tonight, don't let him face it alone. That's all I'm asking." "I won't. I promise." By 6 p.m., guests began arriving. Annabelle stood near the entrance, watching people react to the space with genuine appreciation. The art integration had worked. The gala felt sophisticated and purposeful rather than ostentatious. Jabari appeared at her side, devastating in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. "Ready? Are you?" "Absolutely not. But I'm doing it anyway." He offered his arm. "Stay close?" "Always." They worked the room together, Jabari introducing her as the miracle worker who saved this event, while Annabelle made sure to highlight the charity's impact. People responded to their combined energy, his credibility and her warmth, creating something greater than either could manage alone. At 7:30, Jabari took the stage. Annabelle stood in the front row, heart in her throat, as he gripped the microphone and looked out at 200 expectant faces. "Good evening," he began, voice steady. "4 years ago, I stood at my father's funeral and made a promise that I would continue the work he started, that I would honor his memory by helping families the way he'd helped ours." The room quieted, attention sharpening. "My father, Marcus Wilson, started the Wilson Family Housing Initiative in our living room. Not because he was wealthy or connected or had any special expertise, but because he remembered what it felt like to almost lose our home. To see my mother crying over bills she couldn't pay, to face eviction notices, to experience the terror and shame of potential homelessness. Jabari's voice wavered slightly, but he pushed through. He worked 3 jobs to save our house, and when he succeeded, he didn't forget that fear. He turned it into purpose. He spent the next 20 years helping other families facing the same crisis, believing that housing wasn't just shelter, it was dignity, stability, hope. Annabelle saw people in the audience leaning forward, genuinely engaged. When he died, I inherited this charity, and I'll be honest, I handled it the way I handle everything. With control, with efficiency, with careful planning. I treated it like a business because that felt safer than treating it like what it actually is. My father's heart, still beating, still reaching out to help people. His eyes found Annabelle's, drawing strength. This week has been challenging. We've faced sabotage, lost sponsors, dealt with people who wanted to see this event fail, and I responded the way I always respond, by building walls, by hiding vulnerability, by pretending I had everything under control. But someone recently reminded me that control isn't the same as strength, that vulnerability isn't weakness, that my father's greatest gift wasn't his planning or his efficiency, it was his willingness to be honest about his struggles and use them to connect with others. The room was absolutely silent now. So here's my honesty. I'm scared. Scared of failing him. Scared of letting down the families counting on this charity. Scared of proving that I'm not enough to carry his legacy forward. But I'm here anyway. Because fear doesn't excuse inaction. Because these families need help more than I need comfort. And because my father taught me that the bravest thing you can do is show up even when you're terrified of falling short. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. Tonight isn't about me or my fears. It's about honoring Marcus Wilson by continuing his work. It's about every family who deserves a home, who deserves stability, who deserves someone in their corner fighting for their dignity. And I'm asking you to join me in that fight. Not because it's easy or profitable or socially advantageous, but because it's right. The applause started slowly, then built into a standing ovation. Annabelle's tears flowed freely now, pride and love overwhelming her completely. Jabari stepped off the stage and came directly to her, pulling her into his arms. "How was that?" he whispered against her hair. "Perfect. You were perfect. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to." The rest of the evening unfolded like a dream. Donations exceeded their original goal by 40%. Multiple attendees approached Jabari with stories about his father, about how the charity had helped them, or someone they loved. The media coverage was glowing, emphasizing the event's heart over any manufactured controversy. At midnight, as the last guests departed, Annabelle found Jabari standing alone in the empty museum, staring at the artwork. "You did it," she said, sliding her hand into his. "We did it. Okay, we did it. How does it feel?" He pulled her close, and she felt the tension finally leaving his body. "Like I can finally breathe, like maybe I'm not as lost as I thought." "You were never lost. Just scared of being found." Poetic. I have my moments. They stood together in the quiet space, the weight of the week settling around them. The crisis was over, the gala was a success, and now they had to face the question they'd been avoiding. "Annabelle," Jabari started. "I got fired," she interrupted. "Well, technically I quit before they could fire me. I sent the email an hour ago." He pulled back to look at her, eyes wide. "What?" "My boss gave me an ultimatum, return Monday or I'm done. And I realized I didn't want to return. Not to that job, not to that life. Not when there's something real here that I want to explore." "You quit your job? For me? For us? For the possibility of us?" She took a breath, terrified and exhilarated. "I don't have a plan. I don't know how this works or what comes next. But I know I'm not ready to walk away. So if you're serious about trying this, about tearing down walls and being honest and figuring it out together, I'm in." Jabari's smile was incandescent. "You're in. I'm in. You're insane. Probably. Is that a problem?" "Not even a little bit." He kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. "I love you. I know it's too soon and too fast and completely impractical, but I love you. I love you too. And you're right, it's all those things, but I don't care. What about your career? Your apartment? Your life? I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. She grinned. Besides, I'm pretty good at event planning. I'm sure I can find work in the city. Or you could work with me. The charity needs a full-time coordinator, and you're the best I've ever seen. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you everything. A job, a chance, a future, whatever you're willing to take. Annabelle looked at this man who'd been a stranger 6 days ago and was now somehow her entire heart. Thought about the impossibility of what they were attempting and the absolute certainty that it was worth trying. Then I'll take everything, she said. All of it. Every complicated, terrifying, beautiful piece. And in the empty museum, surrounded by art and hope and the echo of a perfect evening, they kissed like people who'd found something worth the risk. Something real. Something that felt impossibly, wonderfully like home. 3 months later, Annabelle stood in the newly renovated office space, surveying what had become her domain with a satisfaction that still felt surreal. The Wilson Family Housing Initiative had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a one-night gala had snowballed into a full-scale operation, complete with dedicated staff, corporate partnerships, and a wait list of families seeking assistance. And Annabelle was running all of it. The Henderson family just got their keys, Keisha announced, bursting through the door with her phone held high, showing a photo of a beaming couple and 3 kids standing in front of a modest 2-bedroom house. Mrs. Henderson is crying. Mr. Henderson wants to name their baby after Jabari. They're having another baby? Annabelle laughed, making a note to send a gift basket. Apparently, keeping the house reduced their stress enough that they felt stable enough to expand. Which is exactly what this program is supposed to do. Keisha flopped into a chair, grinning. Can you believe this is our life now? 3 months ago, we were scrambling to save one event. Now we're changing actual lives. It's pretty incredible, Annabelle admitted, though incredible didn't begin to cover it. The transition from Charlotte to the city had been chaotic. She'd broken her lease, shipped her belongings, and moved into Jabari's guest room, while apartment hunting, an arrangement that lasted exactly 2 weeks before they admitted the pretense was ridiculous, and she moved into his actual bedroom. Her mother had predictably lost her mind. You moved in with a man you barely know. What about your career? Your independence? Your common sense? But even she'd softened after meeting Jabari and seeing the work Annabelle was doing. The charity job was everything. Her wedding planning career had never been meaningful, challenging, and deeply rewarding. She worked with families facing genuine crises, coordinated with social services and legal aid, and every success felt like it mattered in ways that centerpieces and seating charts never had. Speaking of incredible, Keisha said, her tone shifting to something more serious, have you talked to Jabari about the Chicago opportunity? Annabelle's stomach clenched. Not yet. Belle, they made the offer 3 days ago. You can't avoid this conversation forever. The Chicago opportunity. A major housing advocacy organization had reached out, impressed by the initiative's success, offering Annabelle a director position that would triple her salary and give her national platform for the work she was doing. The catch? It was in Chicago, 1,000 miles from everything she'd built here. I know I need to talk to him, I just don't know what to say. How about the truth, that it's an incredible opportunity but you don't want to leave, or that you're considering it, or literally anything other than silence? It's not that simple. It never is with you two. Keisha stood, squeezing Annabelle's shoulder. But you've already made one huge leap for this relationship. Don't sabotage it now by keeping secrets. Jabari's learned to be vulnerable. You need to trust that he can handle difficult conversations. After Keisha left, Annabelle sat alone with her thoughts and the weight of an impossible choice. She loved her work here, loved the families, the team, the tangible impact they were making, but the Chicago position offered something bigger: policy change, systemic reform, the chance to affect housing security on a national scale. And she loved Jabari. Completely, terrifyingly, can't imagine her life without him. Loved him, but was love enough to turn down the opportunity of a lifetime? Her phone buzzed with a text from the man himself. "Dinner tonight? Have something to discuss." Great. He wanted to talk too. Probably about the fundraising gala next month, or the new partnership with the mayor's office, or any of the dozens of initiatives they were juggling. She texted back, "My place or yours?" "Ours," he corrected, and the casual possessiveness made her smile despite her anxiety. 7 p.m. "I'm cooking." That evening, Annabelle arrived home to find Jabari in the kitchen, actually cooking something he'd started attempting with varying degrees of success after she'd moved in. Tonight appeared to be pasta, which was within his skill range. "Smells good," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Don't get too excited. It's literally just pasta and jarred sauce." "Still counts." She kissed his shoulder blade, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "You said you wanted to talk?" "After dinner. This conversation requires wine." That didn't sound ominous at all. They ate on the balcony, the city lights sprawling below them, making small talk about their days while carefully avoiding whatever difficult conversation was looming. Annabelle noticed Jabari seemed nervous, fidgeting with his wine glass, starting sentences and abandoning them, clearly working up to something. "Okay," he finally said, setting down his fork with deliberate care. "I'm just going to say this because if I overthink it, I'll talk myself out of it. That's not terrifying at all. I got an offer from a venture capital firm in San Francisco. They want me to head their sustainable development division, major salary, equity stake, the chance to influence green building practices across the West Coast." Annabelle's heart stopped. "San Francisco. I know. It's across the country. It would mean leaving the charity, leaving this life we've built." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "But it's also the kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice, the chance to make large-scale impact, to build something that could change entire industries." "When did they make the offer?" 2 weeks ago." 2 weeks. "Jabari, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was trying to figure out what I wanted. Because every time I imagined taking it, I couldn't picture going without you. And every time I imagined turning it down, I wondered if I was making the same mistake my father did, choosing safety over potential." Annabelle pulled her hand back, something sharp and painful lodging in her chest. "What does that mean?" "My father played it safe his entire life. He worked jobs he hated, stayed in positions beneath his capabilities, never took risks because he was so focused on stability. And yeah, he kept our house and started the charity, but he also died at 56, having never pursued his actual dreams. I don't want that to be me. So you want to take the San Francisco job? I want to know if there's a version of this where we both get what we want, where I can pursue this opportunity and you can continue the work here, and somehow we make it work despite the distance." "Long distance? Seriously?" Annabelle stood, needing to move to process. "Jabari, we've been together 3 months. We barely survived 1 week of complications. How exactly do we maintain a relationship with 3,000 miles between us? I don't know. But I know I love you, and I don't want to choose between you and my career." "Well, that's convenient," Annabelle said, anger spiking. "Because I'm being asked to make exactly that choice." Jabari stood too, confusion crossing his face. "What?" "Chicago, housing advocacy organization, director position, national platform, triple my current salary. I got the offer 3 days ago." 3 days? And you didn't tell me? I could ask you the same question. 2 weeks, Jabari. You've been sitting on this for 2 weeks. Because I was trying to figure out how to make it work. By asking me to just accept a long-distance relationship while you pursue your dreams. That's your solution? What's yours? Turn it down. Resent me forever for being the reason you didn't take it. The words hung between them, ugly and true, and cutting to the heart of what they'd both been avoiding. "I don't know," Annabelle admitted, her anger deflating into something sadder. "I don't know how to do this. How to be the woman who supports your ambitions while also honoring my own. How to love you without losing myself in the process." Jabari moved closer but didn't touch her. "Maybe we can't. Maybe this was always going to end here, 2 people who love each other but want different things. Is that what you want? To end this?" "No. God, no. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. But I also don't want to be the reason you don't pursue your dreams. And I don't want to give up mine because I'm afraid of being alone. Annabelle felt tears threatening. So what do we do? I don't know. But I think we need to be honest about what we actually want, not just what we think we're supposed to want. They stood in heavy silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. Finally, Annabelle spoke. I want the Chicago job, not because I don't love you or this life we've built, but because it's the next step in work that matters to me. Work I'm good at. Work that could help thousands of families instead of dozens. Okay, and I want you. I want morning coffee and stupid arguments about your terrible cooking and the way you look at me like I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. But I also know that love isn't always enough. That sometimes people love each other and still can't make it work because the logistics are impossible, or the timing is wrong, or the sacrifices required are too great. Jabari stepped closer, taking her hands. So we're ending this, are we? Annabelle searched his face, looking for answers she didn't have. Or are we brave enough to try something harder? What do you mean? I mean, maybe the answer isn't choosing between our careers and each other. Maybe it's choosing both and figuring out how to make it work despite the complications. Long distance? Really? Not forever. Just until we figure out the next step. You take the San Francisco job, I take Chicago. We're honest about how hard it is, and we video call constantly, and we make time to see each other, and we trust that what we have is worth the effort. That sounds terrible. It does, doesn't it? Annabelle laughed through her tears. But you know what sounds worse? Walking away from you because we're too scared to try something difficult. Spending the rest of our lives wondering if we gave up too easily. Jabari cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. What if it doesn't work? What if the distance tears us apart and we end up hating each other? What if it does work? What if we're strong enough to handle this? What if a year from now, we've both pursued our dreams and we're still together, still in love, still choosing each other despite every reason not to? You're insane. You've mentioned that before. Is it still not a problem? Not even a little bit. He kissed her then, desperate and tender and full of everything they were risking. I love you, even when you're suggesting completely impractical solutions. I love you too, even when you're terrified of being vulnerable. I'm not terrified anymore. You kind of cured me of that. Liar, you're terrified right now. Okay, yes, but I'm doing it anyway. That's growth. They held each other on the balcony, the city lights blurring through Annabelle's tears, both of them shaking with fear and hope and the audacity of what they were about to attempt. So we're really doing this? Jabari asked. Long distance? Cross-country relationship? Maximum difficulty level? We're really doing this. When do you leave for Chicago? They want me to start in 6 weeks. You? San Francisco wants me in 8. So we have a month and a half of normal before everything gets complicated. Then we'd better make it count. 6 weeks later, Annabelle stood in her new Chicago apartment, smaller than Jabari's place, with a view of a brick wall instead of city lights, but hers. Her own space in a new city with a job that challenged and fulfilled her in equal measure. Her phone rang. Jabari, right on schedule for their nightly call. How's the apartment, he asked. Terribly. I miss your place. I miss you. I miss you too. 2 more weeks until San Francisco, then we're both equally displaced. Can't wait. She settled onto her bare mattress. No furniture yet beyond the essentials. How was the final board meeting? Emotional, Keisha cried. I maybe teared up a little. They're in good hands, though Marcus Jr. is stepping up as interim director and absolutely crushing it. Marcus Jr., one of the families they'd helped, who'd gone on to get his social work degree and joined the charity staff. The kind of full-circle success that made everything worthwhile. Tell me something good, Annabelle said, a ritual they'd started. Proof that despite the distance, good things were still happening. The Henderson baby was born yesterday, 7 pounds 6 ounces. They named him Marcus Jabari Henderson. Shut up. I'm serious. They sent a photo. He's perfect. You're going to cry again. Probably. Your turn, something good. I met with 3 families today who are getting emergency housing assistance because of policy changes I helped push through. Real people with real homes because of work I'm doing. It's incredible, Jabari. You're incredible. They talked for 2 hours, like they did every night, about work and fears and the strange loneliness of pursuing dreams that took them away from each other. It was hard, harder than Annabelle had anticipated, but also strangely strengthening. Every conversation was a choice. Every I love you was deliberate. Every plan to visit was something to look forward to. 2 months became 4. 4 became 6. They navigated time zones and busy schedules and the constant ache of missing each other. They had fights about feeling neglected and tearful reunions in airport terminals and the slow, steady building of trust that they could survive this. And somewhere in the complicated mess of loving each other from a distance, they both discovered something crucial. They were whole people separately, which made them even stronger together. On a cold November evening, nearly a year after they'd met, Annabelle's doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Still in pajamas after a long day of policy meetings, hair in a messy bun, no makeup. She opened the door to find Jabari standing there, holding a single key. "What are you doing here?" she gasped. "You're supposed to be in San Francisco." I was, but then I realized something. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I've spent a year proving I can build something meaningful in San Francisco. You've spent a year changing housing policy in Chicago. We've both pursued our dreams and succeeded beyond what we imagined. Okay. And I've also spent a year missing you so much it physically hurts. A year of video calls and airport goodbyes and falling asleep alone wishing you were there, and I'm done." Annabelle's heart stuttered. "Done with us? Done with the distance. Done with choosing between my career and the woman I love." He held up the key. "This is to a condo downtown. 2 bedrooms, home office, actually decent view. I put an offer in last week." "You bought a condo? In Chicago?" "I'm moving here. My firm has a Chicago office that's been begging for leadership. I can do the same work here that I've been doing in San Francisco, but I can do it waking up next to you every morning." "Jabari, you can't just uproot your entire life." "Yes, I can. Because this past year taught me something important. I can succeed anywhere. I can build meaningful work and make an impact and pursue my ambitions in any city. But there's only one you. Only one person who makes me want to be vulnerable and honest and brave. Only one woman I want to build a life with." Annabelle was crying now, overwhelmed and disbelieving and so full of love she could barely breathe. "What about your work in San Francisco? I'm proud of what I built there. But it's time for the next chapter, and I want that chapter to include you. Fully, not just in stolen weekends and late-night phone calls." "This is insane. You've mentioned that before. Is it still not a problem?" She laughed through her tears, throwing her arms around him. "Not even a little bit." He kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. "So is that a yes? Can I move to Chicago and wake up next to you and build a life that includes both our dreams?" "Yes. God, yes. 1,000 times yes." "Good. Because I already signed the lease and gave notice in San Francisco. Would have been really awkward if you'd said no." "You were that sure?" "I was that sure about you. About us. About the fact that we're worth every risk and every complication and every leap of faith." Standing in her small Chicago apartment, holding the man who'd taught her that love and ambition didn't have to be opposing forces, Annabelle finally understood what her mother had tried to tell her all those years ago. Love wasn't about choosing safety or playing it small. It was about finding someone brave enough to grow with you, someone who celebrated your success instead of fearing it, someone who understood that the biggest risk was never trying at all. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. Now can we please talk about this apartment, because I'm pretty sure I saw a roach. It's character building. It's horrifying. Good thing I have a condo we can move into immediately. Presumptuous. Practical. Also, I'm never letting you go again, so you might as well get used to my superior housing choices." And there, in the terrible apartment in Chicago, they kissed like people who'd fought for their happiness and won, like people who'd learned that sometimes the greatest love stories weren't about perfect timing or easy choices. They were about two people brave enough to say yes to risk, to vulnerability, to the terrifying possibility that together they could build something extraordinary, something real, something that felt impossibly, wonderfully, perfectly like home. 6 months after Jabari moved to Chicago, their condo had transformed from empty space into a home that told the story of two lives beautifully intertwined. Annabelle's vintage wedding planning books lined one shelf, a reminder of where she'd come from. Jabari's architectural awards sat beside framed photos of families they'd helped house. Their combined coffee mug collection took up an entire cabinet, a running joke about their shared caffeine addiction. It was a Saturday morning in early May when their doorbell rang insistently, followed by enthusiastic knocking. "If that's another delivery driver at the wrong address, I swear," Annabelle mumbled, shuffling toward the door in Jabari's oversized t-shirt and fuzzy socks. She opened it to find Keisha standing there, suitcase in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. Surprise. "Keisha," Annabelle pulled her into a hug. "What are you doing here? I thought you weren't visiting until next month." "Change of plans. Major, life-altering, need my brother and future sister-in-law change of plans." She wheeled her suitcase inside, looking around appreciatively. "Nice place. Way better than Jabari's bachelor pad was." "That's because I have taste," Annabelle said. "Jabari wanted to put a basketball hoop in the living room. It would have been functional and decorative," Jabari protested, emerging from the bedroom in sweatpants and a faded Howard University shirt. He stopped short when he saw his sister. "Keisha, what's wrong? Is Mom okay?" "Mom's fine. Everyone's fine. Better than fine, actually." Keisha held out her left hand, where a modest but beautiful diamond ring sparkled on her finger. "I'm engaged." The room erupted in chaos. Annabelle squealed, grabbing Keisha's hand to examine the ring. Jabari stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds before sweeping his sister into a bone-crushing hug. "Devon finally proposed. It's about damn time." "Right?" Keisha was laughing and crying simultaneously. "We've only been dating for 4 years. I was starting to think he'd forgotten proposals were a thing." "Tell us everything," Annabelle demanded, pulling Keisha toward the couch while Jabari headed to the kitchen. "I'm making coffee," he called. "This story clearly requires coffee." "And pastries," Keisha added. "There's a bag on top of my suitcase. I stopped at that bakery you told me about." Once they were settled with steaming mugs and chocolate croissants, Keisha launched into the story. Devon, her boyfriend of 4 years, a high school teacher she'd met through the youth mentorship program at the charity, had proposed last night at the very first house the Wilson Family Housing Initiative had helped secure for a family. The Hendersons invited us over for dinner, supposedly to show us the garden Mr. Henderson planted. But when we got there, the whole yard was decorated with lights and flowers, and all the families we've helped over the years were there. Devon got down on one knee and said, She paused. "Tearing up," he said. "You've spent years helping families build homes. I want to spend the rest of my life building one with you." "Oh my God, that's beautiful," Annabelle said, wiping her own eyes. "I'm going to have words with Devon about making the rest of us look bad," Jabari muttered, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "So, obviously I said yes, and then I immediately thought, who do I know who used to be a professional wedding planner and is currently unemployed on weekends?" Annabelle laughed. "I'm not unemployed. I'm strategically available." "Perfect. Because I need you. We want to get married this summer. I know that's insane and probably impossible, but we've been together 4 years and we're both 32 and we just don't want to wait anymore." "This summer? Keisha, that's like 3 months away." "I know. Which is why I'm begging. You planned society weddings with 6-week timelines. Surely you can handle one modest ceremony for your favorite almost sister-in-law. You're my only almost sister-in-law. Details. Will you do it?" Annabelle looked at Jabari, who was watching her with an expression that said he'd support whatever she decided, but was clearly hoping she'd say yes. "Of course I'll do it, but I'm not doing it alone." She grabbed Jabari's hand. "We're planning this together. Full partnership." "I don't know anything about planning weddings," Jabari protested. "You're an architect. You literally plan things for a living. Plus, you know what your sister likes." "What she likes is making my life complicated," he said, but he was smiling. "Fine. We'll plan your wedding. But you're not allowed to be a nightmare bride." "I'm never a nightmare about anything," Keisha said innocently. "You once made Mom return a birthday cake because the frosting was the wrong shade of pink. I was 12 and going through a phase. You were 23. Like I said, a phase." Over the next 3 months, Annabelle and Jabari's condo became wedding planning central. Annabelle had forgotten how much she actually enjoyed this, the creative problem solving, the attention to detail, the satisfaction of bringing someone's vision to life. But this time, without the pressure of demanding clients and her mother's expectations, it felt purely joyful. Especially with Jabari as her partner, he approached wedding planning the way he approached architecture, with meticulous planning, spreadsheets, and an engineer's precision. He created a project timeline with milestones and deadlines. He built a budget tracker that categorized every expense. He even designed a scale model of the venue to help visualize the layout. "You know, most people just wing this part, right?" Annabelle said, watching him adjust tiny paper chairs in his model. "Most people aren't optimizing for maximum guest satisfaction while minimizing logistical complications. It's a wedding, not a construction project. All events are construction projects. You're building an experience." She kissed his cheek. "You're such a nerd. It's adorable." "You say that now. Wait until my system prevents a seating chart disaster." He wasn't wrong. Jabari's organizational skills complemented Annabelle's creative vision perfectly. She'd sketch ideas for centerpieces or ceremony backdrops, and he'd figure out how to make them structurally sound and budget-friendly. She'd dream big, and he'd ground those dreams in reality without diminishing them. They worked on the wedding in the evenings after their day jobs, sprawled across their living room floor with fabric swatches and vendor contracts and growing to-do lists. Sometimes Devon would join them, offering input that usually consisted of whatever Keisha wants, and do we really need to spend that much on flowers? Yes. All three of them would respond in unison, and Devon would wisely retreat. The wedding was set for a Saturday in early August, at the same community center where Jabari's charity held events. Keisha wanted something intimate and meaningful: family, close friends, and some of the families they'd helped over the years. About 80 people total, with a ceremony in the garden and reception in the main hall. "Nothing fancy," Keisha had insisted. "I wanted to feel like us, like family." Annabelle, drawing on her wedding planning expertise, had sourced local vendors who could deliver quality on a modest budget. A bakery training program run by formerly incarcerated individuals was making the cake. A florist who'd started his business after the charity helped him secure housing was handling the arrangements. The photographer was the daughter of one of the first families they'd assisted. It was exactly the kind of wedding Annabelle would have never planned in her old life: modest budget, short timeline, unconventional vendor choices, and it was the most fulfilling work she'd done in years. What she didn't know was that Jabari was planning something else entirely. 3 weeks before the wedding, while Annabelle was at a policy conference, Jabari made a series of phone calls. First, to Keisha. "So, I need to talk to you about the reception. If you're calling to tell me we're over budget again, I don't want to hear it. No, it's not that. I want to propose to Annabelle. At your wedding." Silence. Then, "Are you serious?" "Completely. I know it's your day, and I would never do anything to overshadow that. But I also keep thinking about what Devon said when he proposed about building a home together. And Annabelle helped you build this perfect wedding while simultaneously building this incredible career and this life with me. And I want to make it official. I want everyone we love to be there when I ask her to marry me." Jabari, "Oh my God, yes. 1,000 times yes. This is perfect. You're sure? I don't want to steal your thunder." "Are you kidding? Having my brother propose to my wedding planner at my wedding? That's the best gift you could give me. Plus, it'll make the day extra memorable. Okay, good, because I also need your help. His second call was more nerve-wracking. To Annabelle's grandmother, Vivian. Mrs. Cooper, this is Jabari Wilson. We met at... I remember you, young man. You're the one who convinced my granddaughter to move to Chicago and give up a perfectly good wedding planning business. Yes, ma'am. About that. I'm teasing. Annabelle's happier than I've ever seen her. What can I do for you? He explained his plan. Vivian listened quietly, and when he finished, there was a long pause. Mr. Wilson, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you love my granddaughter? More than I knew it was possible to love someone. And when things get difficult, because they will, are you going to run, or are you going to stay and work through it? I'm going to stay, always. Good. Then you have my blessing. Now what do you need from me? What he needed was her grandmother's ring. The one Annabelle had mentioned once, late at night when she was half asleep and rambling about family history. Her grandmother's original engagement ring from the 1950 seconds, simple and elegant, that she'd always hoped would be passed down someday. I'm driving to Chicago next week, Vivian said. We'll have lunch, and I'll bring the ring. But Jabari? Yes, ma'am. When you propose, don't make a big production out of it. My granddaughter has spent her entire life managing other people's big moments. When it's her turn, she'll want something real, something true. I understand. I don't think you do, but you will. I'll see you next week. The final weeks before the wedding blurred into a frenzy of last-minute details. Annabelle was in her element, triple-checking vendor confirmations and managing the 1,000 small crises that arose. Jabari supported her while secretly coordinating with Keisha on the proposal plan. He'd kept it simple, like Vivian suggested. During the reception, after the formal toasts, but before the dancing started, he'd take the microphone. He'd thank everyone for coming, talk about the importance of family, and then he'd turn to Annabelle and ask her to marry him. The ring, Vivian's ring, sat in his bedside drawer, a small velvet box he looked at every morning as a reminder of what was coming. The night before the wedding, Annabelle finally stopped working around midnight, collapsing onto the couch beside Jabari. I think we did it, she said, exhausted but satisfied. Everything's ready. Keisha's going to have the perfect day. You made that happen. We made that happen. I couldn't have done this without you. She curled into his side. You know what's funny? A year ago, I was planning weddings for people I barely knew and hating every minute of it. Now I just planned a wedding for your sister, and it's been one of the best experiences of my life. What changed? Everything. You changed. My career changed. I changed. I finally figured out that it's not about the weddings themselves, it's about the people and the meaning behind them. Jabari kissed the top of her head, his heart hammering with anticipation and love. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a big day. The biggest. Your baby sister is getting married. And if I have anything to say about it, he thought, you're next. The wedding day dawned, perfect clear skies, gentle breeze, temperatures in the mid-70s. Annabelle was up at dawn, checking and rechecking details, even though everything was already perfectly organized. The ceremony was beautiful. Keisha looked radiant in a simple lace dress. Devon couldn't stop crying, and when they exchanged vows they'd written themselves, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Annabelle watched from the front row, Jabari's hand in hers, thinking about love and commitment and the ways people choose each other every day. The reception was exactly what Keisha wanted, intimate, joyful, full of laughter and dancing and celebration. The food was delicious, the cake was spectacular, and the speeches were heartfelt without being too long. As the evening wore on, Annabelle started to relax. Everything had gone perfectly. No disasters, no drama, just a beautiful celebration of two people committing their lives to each other. She was chatting with Vivian, who'd insisted on coming despite the drive, when the DJ's music faded and Jabari's voice came through the speakers. Sorry to interrupt the dancing, but I need everyone's attention for just a moment. Annabelle turned to see him standing with the microphone, looking nervous in a way she rarely saw. First, I want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate Keisha and Devon. My sister has been my best friend my entire life, and seeing her this happy makes everything right in the world." Keisha beamed from where she stood with Devon, but something in her expression looked knowing, conspiratorial. "Family has always been important to me," Jabari continued. "After my father died, it was family, both blood and chosen, that kept me going. The charity we built was about creating that sense of family for others, of home, of belonging." Annabelle noticed people were looking at her, smiling. Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "And then, about a year and a half ago, I met someone who changed everything. Someone who crashed a charity gala with terrible timing, challenged everything I thought I knew about myself, and somehow convinced me that being vulnerable wasn't weakness, it was the bravest thing I could do. Oh. Annabelle's heart started racing as Jabari stepped down from the small stage and walked toward her. "Annabelle Cooper, you've spent the last 3 months planning my sister's perfect wedding. You've spent the last year and a half teaching me what it means to really love someone, not the controlled, careful version I thought was safe, but the messy, complicated, all-in version that actually matters." He took her hands, his own shaking slightly. "You've built an incredible career, changed housing policy, helped hundreds of families, and somehow still found time to plan the perfect wedding for my sister. You're brilliant and driven and absolutely terrible at cooking." "Hey," she protested, through tears that were already falling, "and you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want to be braver, more honest, more myself." He released one of her hands to pull something from his pocket, the small velvet box that made Annabelle's breath catch. "This was your grandmother's ring. She gave it to me because she said you'd always hoped to wear it someday. And I'm hoping—" He opened the box to reveal a delicate vintage ring with a single, perfect diamond, "that you'll wear it as my wife." He dropped to one knee, and the entire reception erupted in gasps and excited whispers. "Annabelle Cooper, will you marry me?" Annabelle looked down at Jabari, this man who'd started as an uptight architect and become her partner, her best friend, her home. She looked at the ring that had graced her grandmother's hand for 60 years. She looked at Keisha, who was openly crying, and at her grandmother, who was beaming with joy. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, of course, yes." Jabari stood and slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Then he kissed her while their family and friends erupted in applause and cheers. "I can't believe you proposed at your sister's wedding," Annabelle said against his lips, laughing and crying simultaneously. "I cleared it with her first. This way everyone we love gets to celebrate with us. It's perfect. You're perfect. I love you so much." "I love you too. Now come on, I believe the tradition is that the newly engaged couple gets to dance." As they swayed on the dance floor, surrounded by people who loved them, Annabelle felt a profound sense of rightness. This was what she'd been searching for all those years, planning other people's weddings, not the perfect centerpieces or the flawless timeline, but this feeling of being chosen, of choosing someone in return, of building something real with someone brave enough to grow alongside you. "What are you thinking about?" Jabari murmured. "About how a year and a half ago I crashed your gala and my whole life fell apart. And now I'm here, engaged to you, doing work I love, surrounded by family. It's kind of miraculous. You didn't crash the gala, you were invited." "I crashed the VIP section. Best decision you ever made." "Second best," she corrected, holding up her hand to admire the ring catching the light. "Best decision was saying yes just now." "Good answer." Across the room, Keisha caught Annabelle's eye and mouthed, "Thank you. For the wedding, for loving her brother, for becoming family." Annabelle smiled back, overwhelmed with gratitude. Later that night, after the reception wound down and they'd said goodbye to the last guests, Annabelle and Jabari stood on their condo balcony, looking out at the Chicago skyline. "So," Jabari said, "I should probably tell you that I may have already started making wedding planning spreadsheets." "Jabari, what?" "I'm organized. You know this about me. We got engaged 6 hours ago, which means we're already behind schedule." She laughed, kissing him to shut him up. How about we just enjoy being engaged for a little while before we dive into planning? I can do that, he pulled her closer. But for the record, I'm thinking small ceremony, meaningful venue, nothing too elaborate. You're literally planning our wedding right now. I'm thinking about planning our wedding. There's a difference. There really isn't. They stood together as the city lights sparkled below them. Two people who'd found each other in the chaos of a crashed gala and built something extraordinary from the wreckage of their old lives. Hey, Jabari? Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on the crazy wedding planner who crashed your event. Thank you for seeing past the uptight architect who didn't know how to be vulnerable. We've come pretty far, haven't we? We really have. He kissed her temple. And we're just getting started. Annabelle leaned into him, her grandmother's ring solid and real on her finger, and thought about all the weddings she'd planned over the years. The elaborate ceremonies and reception halls and carefully curated details. None of them had meant as much as this moment. This man, this choice they were making to build a life together. I love you, she said simply. I love you too. Now come inside, I want to show you the initial vendor comparison chart I've started. You're serious about the spreadsheets, aren't you? Annabelle, I'm always serious about spreadsheets. She let him lead her inside, already laughing at his meticulous planning for a wedding that was still months or maybe years away. Already looking forward to every complicated, beautiful, perfectly imperfect moment of their future together. Because sometimes the best love stories weren't the ones that went according to plan. They were the ones where you crashed the party, took the risk, and said yes to something bigger than yourself. And she'd said yes. She'd keep saying yes, for the rest of her life. The end. No, not the end yet. You didn't like the video, and you haven't even subscribed, but you enjoyed the story, didn't you? Of course, I wrote it with every love I have to give, and I know you loved it. Now serve me my subscription. No, sorry, subscribe. I meant subscribe so you don't miss our next story. I'd hate that you miss it. For now, do well to explore our previous stories while I finish up the next one. I'll see you on that one. Bye.